Vladimir Kramnik is a Russian chess grandmaster that is very well known for beating Kasparov and thereby taking the chess championship. But he is also known for popularizing a common chess opening known as the Catalan. Today I'm sharing the ideas you have in the Catalan and how you can play it and successfully win matches with it. I'll also show a game between Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Kramnik where the Catalan was used. Let's go! So the Catalan is d4, King's Indian defense, c4, e6, and now g3. But generally the Catalan is just this pawn formation, so you can even reach it with the Hungarian opening. So g3 first, and then obviously with the addition of d4 and c4, you reach the Catalan. And even kind of with the readies opening, you can reach it. So like this move, and now d4, c4, and fianchetto the bishop, and you'll reach the Catalan. So all that the Catalan really means is this pawn formation with g3 and then c4 and d4. And it's kind of a combination of the fianchettoed bishop on the king side and the queen's gambit on the queen side. Okay, so a big idea here is controlling the light squares in the center. So let's go ahead, put the position back on the board. And I do want to make sure that you notice something, which is once you fianchetto the bishop here, you already have a lot of control on the light squares. But on top of that, with the queen's Indian, with the queen's gambit, so d4 and c4, you end up playing c3 a lot, which once again gives you that control. So being able to mix up these two separate openings ends up giving you a lot of control on the light squares in the center, and it works really well. That doesn't mean that you have no disadvantage. Obviously, this g4 square here is very weak for you because typically g3 is not a move that you're going to play, and instead maybe h3 stopping the knight traveling here, the bishop traveling here. But now with this half formation on this side, g4 ends up being pretty weak. But once again, you do have enough compensation in the form of control of the center. So I feel like this opening overall is very nice. And now I want to show you a game where this was used so you can kind of figure out how to develop your pieces with it and land yourself at a very nice position to continue the game. Here's the game between Vladimir Kramnik versus Magnus Carlsen. Vladimir has the white pieces and begins with the readies opening. After f6, c4 was played, and then g3 was played. And finally, to reach the Catalan, d4 was played. So once again, you can reach it with the readies opening as long as you end up playing these three moves, because these are the important signs of the Catalan. Okay, from here, this is just a very nice developing move, getting ready to castle. And here, you obviously, the whole goal with g3 is to get the bishop here controlling the center. So g2 was played with the bishop, also getting ready to castle. And now after the pawn takes, queen here, getting ready to capture back. And this move here, a6, getting ready to, I guess, put pressure on the queen once the queen captures back, and kind of solidifying this pawn formation on the queen side. So it's an interesting choice of moves, solidifying a pawn chain so early on, but overall it works well because here you gain tempo. The queen has to go back, right? So it ends up working quite well here. Magnus Carlsen uses his tempo as a way to develop the bishop aimed at this knight here, and now the bishop here. So the idea with this bishop, so there's a couple of areas it can go. The bishop can go here, but you realize that once this move is played, you can't play this because then the bishop can get stuck. So right now, because you have this formation, the bishop usually does not find itself here because it will just get stuck on the king side, right? So usually you want to keep the bishop on the queen side in the Catalan, which also means that you can play e3 before you even choose to develop the bishop, right? But here, first, the bishop was developed to d2, and then only e3 was played. Here, the trade of knights, or the trade of a bishop and a knight was played. And overall, that's fine because, once again, this bishop isn't as good as it usually would be because of all of these dark squares here for the pawns. So you can easily trade that, bad bishop for a knight, okay? And now just more developing moves, getting the knight into the game, potentially being ready to, put the knight on a more central square. Obviously, that's not possible right now, but eventually maybe you would look to do that. And here you find yourself at this kind of pawn breakthrough on the queen side, which usually ends up happening if you castle queen side. And instead of breaking up the tension, and leaving your opponent with no a-pawn, which is obviously going to work well for them, and you having an a-pawn and having this really annoying pawn here in the corner that you always have to protect. Instead of that, the move knight here was played, just putting the knight at a very useful square where it can attack more pieces on the king. And here, the knight was moved here, putting more pressure on this pawn, threatening to actually end up winning the pawn, although that also was a threat before. And now the knight jumps here, just, putting itself at a more useful square than where it previously was at d2. Finally, the tension between these two pawns broke. Magnus decided to take the pawn. The knight jumped to a5, where it can also control this square here. And you'll notice that now a lot of trades just ended up happening. First, this knight here was traded, and then this knight over here was traded. Okay, so there was just a lot of trades that happened, which usually ends up happening if both players in the start decide to hold on to their material. Eventually, the board will become more simplified, so eventually just there will be a lot of trades that happen all at once if in the start you decide not to trade as much. Finally, you can take back the pawn here, and now the rook moves here to a more active square, attacking a piece, and the knight jumps back, where before, although now you can no longer grab this piece, sure, but before this would have just walked into a pin. And you never want to put your piece in a pin if you have the option not to, right? So this move is really nice, gaining tempo, hitting the queen. Queen moves here. Now the pawn is undefended. So it's just a very nice strategical idea, getting out of harm's way, hitting the queen, forcing the queen out here, winning the pawn. It's just a very nice tactical game by Vladimir. And now the queen can also hit this other pawn. So once again, just a very beautiful game. And finally, after a few more trades, Black decided to resign in this position here. So there isn't much that can happen. This bishop will have to, move to a very unactive square. And overall, that obviously will just lead to taking the rook here. So it's just not going to end up in a great position for Magnus Carlsen, which is why he resigned. So you can see how powerful the Catalan opening can be if you play like a grandmaster. But no, even if you don't play perfectly or anything close to perfect, the Catalan is just a very nice formation. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and learned a very nice opening while watching a very nice chess game. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button, and check out my brand new website at www.chessgeek.org. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.